Hey everybody, welcome to Alabama Care. Today I have with me my co-host John Wood and our guest Matt Williams.
Hey,
We're going to be
everybody.
talking about having a sibling with a disability and um, kind of like education also. Let me do it.
I didn't say anything.
I thought Matt did.
Oh, I didn't. I'm good.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me pull up the stream real quick. Okay, so our first question is one that probably everybody wants to know. What's it like having a sibling with a disability? Just to start off.
Okay. What's it like having a sibling with a disability? Um, I feel like it's not, it wasn't very easy. I'll say that, but it was it's one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. I think that, from the moment that my father let us know that, you were going to be different, uh, I had to adjust to understanding what that meant. And, mom and dad were learning with me at that time when you were first born. So I don't think they knew what to expect. And therefore, I didn't really know what to expect. So, a lot of things. I remember the first day you came home, you had a shunt and you had the staples in your head. And I wasn't really prepared for that. And I didn't understand what that meant or what was going on. But I had to be educated. I had to learn what a shunt was. I had to learn how, uh, you know, spina bifida would affect you, and watching you learn how to walk when you were younger. That was a big piece of just kind of growing and learning about you and how the disability has affected you. Um, it's been a very it's an experience that I treasure, and I'm always going to treasure. So, does that answer your question? I hope so.
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
You can also introduce yourself if you want to. I forgot
Oh,
about
I
that
guess I
part.
wouldn't need to do that. Hi, that would have been a good first question. My name is Matt
Yeah.
Williams. I'm Sarah's brother. I work in an elementary school where I am a learning support specialist. So part of my job is to be an advocate for students who do not currently have uh, IEPs, but are in the process of kind of getting to that point or looking at, maybe it could possibly be eligible for services or special education services. That's my current position.
Hmm.
All right.
Okay.
And John, you can also talk about like your sister and brother at any point if you would like to.
Sure. Um, Being as the only person in the family with a major physical disability, it kind of allows me, and mainly my brother and sister, who from the get go, even though my younger than me, my sister mainly when I was born was the first was introduced to disability family. From the get go, she knew wasn't gonna probably live. Two, I would be severely disabled, and three, that she knew that this journey she was entering to be something that she had to take on with bravery. Because, like I said, I'm the only one in the family with the major physical disability, and then we were even having a conversation about this the other day on the phone, and I'm writing a book about it, and she she basically told me that the first probably month after I was born, she was even afraid to come near me because she thought I was made of glass and would just explode like that. So that's mainly my big thing on it. Go ahead.
I will say that yeah, same kind of thing at the beginning, Sarah. When you were first born, I was a little afraid just worried that I would hurt you or something like that. But I think it's like that with most babies.
Yeah.
My other brother, we were so young when he was born. We're 10 years apart, Sarah and I. So there's a pretty big gap there. And, you know, I feel like that was a big piece, just the age gap in and of itself. And I think that's been part of just my learning process. Um,
Go ahead.
Also with like the shunt and the staples and all that, because shunts were, I guess, pretty new.
Yeah, it was a relatively new thing, and I think, like I said, mom and dad didn't. I don't think they were necessarily prepared in how to explain it to us. So we just kind of had to go with it and learn as you grew what could happen. I remember when I think you were 7 or 8, and you had to have the surgery on your shunt. I believe like your first shunt surgery,
Yeah, that
and
was, I think, my first.
that was pretty scary, and we didn't know what to expect if it was going to how it was going to affect you. Um, but that was a big. Just trying to look back at everything, and you know, what other kind of questions you got for us?
Okay, my next one is because I have a disability, did you ever feel like you didn't get enough attention from mom and dad because of like hospital stays and doctor's appointments? I know like we're 10 years apart because so you were older.
Yes, yes, yes is the answer to that question. But I understood why you needed the attention. It was a necessity, and it's I, I'm okay with that, and I've always been okay with that. You needed that attention more than I did. Uh, my brother, I don't know, he may need more of it for you, but you needed that attention more than I did, and I think it's you've been so successful. I think getting that attention has helped that. So I'm yes, the answer to that.
Gotcha. Okay, my next question actually has to do with the hospital stays and the surgeries. Um, how did you feel when I would have to have like a hospital stay or surgery?
Just the that doubt or the unknowing of what was going to happen really kind of scared me, and that's why a lot of times, when you the first couple of times you had to go in the hospital, I needed to be there, and I went down there and
Mm-hmm.
stayed with you for a while because and I told mom, I said, if you need to go take a break she wouldn't leave. So, I mean, there's no way she was leaving your side, even though I knew she was tired and exhausted and needed to. But I felt like I needed to be with you in those times too, um, just to make sure you were okay and that you were safe and, that you were getting what you needed. Um, as far as when I was a teenager and you had your first surgery, I really freaked out that first time you had to have your shunt.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you had to have your shunt. It wasn't replaced, but I think you had to have your shunt.
I
Was
probably
it
just had to have it fixed. Yeah.
fixed? Yeah,
Yeah.
because that was the first really big thing that we were like, wow, Sarah's, this is unexpected. This came out of nowhere, and I
Right.
knew at that age I'm thinking brain surgery. I'm thinking, well, that's a big deal. That's something that's
Yeah.
that can't be a good thing, and I didn't know how to
No.
handle it.
Right.
But as you've gotten older and you've had more surgeries and just everything, uh, I hate. I wish you didn't have to. I wish you didn't have to go through it, but I know it's something that you have to do.
Right.
To continue on and be as successful as you are now. You've got to. You can't just give up.
Yeah. I also think that might have been the one where I just went for a checkup and
Hmm.
ended up having to have surgery.
Yes, I do believe it was. I think you were
Yeah.
8 or 9. Right? Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
had that happen to me too. I went in for what been a routine MRI on the shunt and turned out to be, hey, you've got a major blockage and you're going in for brain surgery in 20 minutes. And I'm like, oh crap, I just got checked out of school. I have to go back. I have a major test. And they're like, nope, you're getting sedated and having a brain scan and then having surgery. I'm like, over my dead freaking body, you are.
Yeah,
But
it's not
yeah,
a fun experience when you go for a routine checkup and you're waiting for results, and the next thing you know, a nurse is coming out with a bunch of toys.
wonderful. Yes, here's a bunch of toys for you. A needle. Here's
Yeah,
tubing.
at the
Here's
time, they gave me the toys. So at the time, and I'm like 6 or 7, so I'm like, oh, toys. And then they're like, we have to start an IV. Oh, okay.
a wonderful. Mm, I could go on and on. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. We are actually like really jumping topics. Uh, when your friends were like outsiders would like come around us, were you ever worried about like what they would say about
No,
me or
honestly, my friends were very accepting, and you know my friends, and lots of them have been are lifelong friends. You know, I it never really changed much, but I will say that there were times like when you were. Uh, there were times though, like where we would have to slow things down so you could keep up and things like that, and I had to learn patience and being like 11, 12, wanting to hang out with my friends and stuff, and then but you having to come along or keep up. That was sometimes that kind of was an issue sometimes, but not a major thing. I don't feel my friends were very accepting, or I've always been accepting of you, Sarah. I don't think that that's ever been a problem.
Mama just posted a question actually
Oh, does she?
that kind of goes along with that. How did you handle people who said negative things about your sibling having a disability, if that ever happened?
Honestly, it never happened that I'm aware of. I mean, uh, I choose the people I'm around. I'm very cautious of who's around me, and if anybody were to have said something like that, I wouldn't have been. They wouldn't have come around again.
Exactly.
Has having a sibling with a disability changed any, like, your perspective on anything?
It's definitely made me more aware of like the students I work with, and being more like the patience that I've built up working with students, working having to work work with you, and uh, understanding that this is something you have to live with for the rest of your life. But
Right,
it doesn't need to be a negative thing. It doesn't have to be. You can take it like you have and turn it around to a positive. Uh, yeah, that's probably what I've learned the most. It's really helped me as a professional working with kids, who do have disabilities, to kind of work with them and understand what they're going through, see their
right,
perspective.
right. Let's see. Judy Johnson said, my children have always been very protective of their younger disabled brother. Yeah, both my brothers are pretty protective of me.
Yeah,
I will say
My
that.
my little one is protective of me, and the other way around. So it's like I'm the oldest, and my little brother, who is literally a foot taller than me, is more protective over me, and I should be the one protective over him. I think those role reversals in even in this case are acceptable because yes, you have the older brother, and yes, the younger brother is the more protective one, but that's still a good thing because that person knows that the other person's still going to be protective, even
Right,
though he's their underdog, so to speak.
right.
That's my own thing.
and Sarah, I would have
Heather,
been protective of you. Sarah, I would have been protective of you regardless of disability or not. That's just the brother thing, really. I mean,
that
it's just
is,
Yep.
that's
we're always going
true.
to be
Yeah.
protective of our sisters.
I think it not made it worse. That sounds awful. But you're more protective of me because of the disability, though. And you've
I think we're
seen what I've
protective in
had
different
to,
ways.
yeah, you've seen what I've
Hmm.
had to go through
Right, and just some
in
of the
like
physical
school.
things. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heather says Matt is a great caregiver. I think this stems from his early experience with Sarah. Sorry, not a question, but just something to add.
Well, thank you, Heather.
Right there.
Um, let's see. Major
6.
differences between having a sibling with and without a disability.
Uh, some of the stuff we kind of touched on already. Just you have to have an extreme amount of patience, just to kind of, and but that's a good thing. Like because everyone needs to have more patience. It's um, I felt like you and I didn't get in as many arguments or fights as Brent and I did. But I don't know if that was just an age thing or that I just knew I couldn't like, like I didn't, I knew what you were going through. I didn't want to make you feel bad. You know what I mean? Or I didn't want to try to like
Right.
pick on you as
Yeah.
much. Um,
Right. I feel like that could have been both though, because we are 10 years apart.
yeah. And I mean, you're the only sister. Yeah. And, you're my sister, whereas Brent was a brother and just two boys going, we would fight all the time and go
And
at each
y'all
other.
were
But
into like all the video games and wrestling and all that,
yeah.
and I
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah. We tried to get you in, but you didn't want to.
Exactly.
It cut
I
out.
I do remember watching like y'all play video games all the time.
Yeah, that's what we did all the time. Hadn't changed too much.
um,
7, I think you've
okay,
already covered.
now do what?
7, I think you've already covered what he does for a job. I think. Did we?
Yeah,
Yeah, you want to introduce myself?
yeah.
Talk to you about that.
Yep.
Um, let's go because there was a question about the education. Back up here. It says, how much do you think being a family member to someone with a disability impacted your decision to work in the disability field?
I'd say almost. I'd say it was a huge influence. Seeing my mom work with her school and the different things that she did to, set up the school in Alabama, and then seeing both mom and dad as teachers, it really influenced me a good bit. But then I think working with you, Sarah, it helped me just be a better teacher in general. Just having that patience and being able to work through problems, that within the classroom and stuff like that.
Right.
Sorry about the background noise, guys.
Oh, it's all good.
Can't really hear it.
My brother and my
Mom
dad.
said both of Sarah's brothers became excellent caregivers, and I really think that had to do with helping with Sarah. Judy said, I will say that my daughter chose to go into teaching, but not into special education because of having a disabled brother. Too personally involved.
Oh, and I could understand that. I could see
Yeah.
how you could go in the other direction because
Yeah.
you know that,
I'm actually
it's
surprised you went into special ed.
well,
Just because you lived with it.
yeah,
Exactly.
and it can be hard. It can be hard to separate your personal feelings about it and the professional. But I mean, that's just. I mean, I don't think I'd have it any other way. But
So, have you always wanted to do education or
no, when
something new?
I wanted to do journalism for a little while, um, but then I just decided that wasn't for me. Kind kind of happy about that because newspapers are kind of going out the way, and there's still journalism on the internet, but just about anybody can kind of put up a blog or something and call it that. Yeah, and then just like everybody else in the world, I thought I might want to do psychology. I didn't do that. Then I
Right.
settled on teaching education, and right now I'm trying to go into administration, looking at being a principal and assistant principal.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
That's insane. That's awesome. And honestly, not to bunny trail off, but you seem like a very smart person to be able to get into these, to have these goals and to get into these avenues. And coming from somebody who doesn't really have a special education background in regards to like teaching, but I did volunteer with student special education for
Mhm.
2 years after I graduated high school, and I see what I see the problems with the education system in general, but with special
Mhm.
education, I don't think that you have any problem with it. It's just, in my opinion, things could be a lot better. But you seem to
Right.
handle it right. And it's like you're right on the ball. Boom, boom, boom. You're like a firecracker when it comes to these certain things. So I gotta my hats off to you, man. I applaud you. You are one of the smartest people I have known. So there you go.
Oh, well, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Well, yeah, it takes without my mom though, and her knowledge of special education, and then working with my sister. I don't think I would. It would be as it would have been the path I decided to take. So it was really Sarah and my mom putting me in that position to kind of go forward with education.
And honestly, to get in more on that, it takes somebody cut from this certain type of cloth, so to speak, to be able to do something like that. And Sarah, you can even agree with me, coming
Yeah.
as a person with a disability, it takes a person cut from a special cloth to handle the certain stuff that you deal with on a daily basis, and to handle the opportunity of getting to work with somebody, or even getting to be related to somebody as Sarah. And I gotta say, Sarah, you're one of the smartest people I know, and you have so many hats and you do so many different things, and I'm proud of you, and I'm honored to be on
Thanks.
this with
Thank you. Um, Sharon Glenn Henderson said hi. Hi, Miss Sharon. Uh, what are some cool and new things you see happening in the special education field?
you. Hear this.
Uh, New and cool things in the special education field, like I'm seeing where we're moving from a system of uh, moving more towards inclusion in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
More seeing special ed is no longer its own separate area in the building or something like that. Where all the children are in like a resource room, or moving more towards where kids are included in the regular classroom as much as possible. They have their least restrictive environment, um,
Yep.
and I'm seeing a lot of kids that are really getting a lot of the interventions, the things they need, not just from the special education department, but from just our general education teachers. I think that's a big step in the right direction, but I do think that's going to take a lot. And that's just at my school. See, down the street, it may be completely different. I don't know. But I just know at my school, that's what we're seeing. And I think that's a great thing.
Right.
I'd like to connect on that, actually. Coming from a high school that has probably one of the most advanced technologically advanced special education departments in the state, I've seen the advancement, people going from putting people in corners to inclusion, so to speak. And I didn't know what inclusion meant until I graduated in 2013. So in the last, say, 8 years since graduation, I've been able to hear success stories of students that I used to work with that are now working in, mainstream society,
Mm-hmm.
whereas
Hmm.
years ago they were labeled as unteachable and just put off into a corner on their own. And coming as someone who went to school in the early 90s, I've seen the advancement of quote unquote panic rooms and
Hmm.
all this other stuff to where now we're, like you said, Matt, we're having people with disabilities integrated into general education
Hmm.
classrooms. My best friend Ralph had mild autism and learning disabilities, and he and I were in the same learning strategies class, and it wasn't labeled as special education, nor was it gen ed in a way, because you had a mix of both in there. But when we both graduated and he took on a job at Lowe's, I said, hey, this kid can do it, even though he has this going on, but it's, quote, hidden. Also, it's not hidden. It's like it's out there, but you know,
Mm-hmm.
he can still function. And that's
Right.
the function of different, disabilities, especially in this, day and age, is just like coming from being where we were 20 years ago to now. It's just like a major ball game change. Like you're dealing with more people that know what the heck they're doing, as opposed to someone who just fell off the turnip truck and was just pushed into or special ed and doesn't know a clue of what the heck they're doing. So
Right.
Right.
sorry for the long-winded.
Agree. Good. I agree. I agree 100% though. That's very true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, this question is actually for me and you, John,
Okay,
and you kind of already answered it. Um, what would you change
bring it on.
about education from your experience in K through 12?
Definitely my K through, I would say my K through 4 years were some of the hardest because you had teachers that, quote, didn't know what the heck they were doing. And you
Mm-hmm.
had, like I said, people that just fell off the turnip truck, pushed into special education. They actually hired on a lady for me from Washington that was teaching at or helping at a school in Washington, and they hired her on as my aide. And she was only supposed to be my aide for a couple of months, and she ended up being my aide from fourth grade until I graduated. This woman literally went
Wow.
Wow.
from school to where I was. Literally got transferred to each school I was at because she wanted to see where I was going to go. And to me that to me meant that the system wasn't broken. That they had people that knew what they were doing and they knew where to put the certain people to make the puzzle fit together. And to me that just felt like I wasn't being left behind. I don't have, such a or major physical disability to where I'm like, gonna lash out at you or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm cool as a cucumber. And to
Right.
have somebody who I can sit there and tell things to, about my education made me feel better because I knew I was being listened to. And I say K through 4 was hard until that moment. 4th through 12th grade was like chocolate cake to me. It was like a slice of cake because I was able to just breeze through everything and not care about, getting this grade this way or getting that, thing done because I knew I had somebody who understood what I needed and what I was trying to get, in regards to my education. So I would say that that was, the turning point of education for me was and on.
I am actually the complete opposite.
Hear this.
Kindergarten through third, I went to I went to two different schools, elementary.
Ooh.
Um, Kindergarten through third, I went to a school that I already knew the majority of them because I had gone to preschool with them.
Okay.
Um, and then the summer between third and fourth grade, I switched schools. Um, and I went to a school where they hadn't really had anybody with a disability ever.
Oh my
Um,
god.
so it was the probably the inclusion part for me too.
Exactly.
Because they didn't know what they were doing. Um, I had to have an aide. Um, and they stuck me with the librarian.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Um,
Hmm.
but I got picked on, bullied. Um, it just wasn't a fun time. So I would
Oh.
say more of like the inclusion thing for me as well because
Mhm.
I wasn't included.
Right.
I was more shut out than anything in that school.
I've had moments like that myself. I've literally had moments where I couldn't go on school trips because they couldn't find or would not find a bus that was suitable for me.
Yeah,
And we're missing out on a really good opportunity to go on a trip to Disney because they couldn't find a tour bus that had a lift, or they couldn't find somebody to haul me up and down the steps of the lift because, I could be carried at this point out of the wheelchair. And I had to miss that opportunity. And I'm sitting here like, okay, so my class gets to go to friggin' Disney World, and I have to sit here and do 3 days worth of pre-planned work while the rest of my class goes and gets to have fun. You know what that's like to me? That's like a giant middle finger to me. Like,
yeah,
it's like the education system at that point telling me, nope, screw you. You don't get to go have fun. You get to go be a useless cripple somewhere else.
yeah.
Pardon me while I put my foot in my mouth.
Do you have anything to say? No.
Sarah, did you ever miss out on anything like that when you were in school? Like, do you have examples of that where, like, it just they
Um,
basically said you can't do this with everybody else?
I don't remember any field trips. There were some stuff like in like the PE classes that
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't do, and they didn't have anything that
So you had to
I
sit there.
could do. So I literally sat there
Say
and
that.
watched everybody else.
Were you in a regular PE class or were you in adaptive PE?
No, regular.
They had me in adaptive PE for years, and the coaches that they gave us were really spot on and smart, but it could have been a lot better. So
Yeah.
my hat's off. I don't know how you went through regular PE like that. It's like you fight so hard for something like that for your own person, and it's like they basically just
I
say nope.
I remember I mean I was really young at my first school,
Right?
but that PE coach I think made more of an effort to include me and stuff
Really?
than the one at my second school. Um I remember
Mm.
sitting out a lot more at the second school that I was at.
I see.
But at that
Hmm.
point I was getting bullied so much that I just didn't care.
I think once
Ah,
again that's
okay.
just that's training. Like, just the teachers need training to understand how
Right.
what to do
Exactly.
and how they can change their instruction to adapt to what to your needs. Um, but yeah, that's probably exactly what happened. Like you said, we had at the school you were at, there had been several children who had gone through with similar disabilities. Um, however, like you said, at the second school, they acted like they had never had a child ever with a disability. So I mean, that's just showing that they had probably already learned some strategies and things beforehand through the other students they'd worked
Right.
with.
Exactly.
Um, Judy Johnson says, yes, things could be a lot better for special education. It's always a struggle to fight for our kids. I love my special ed teachers, always fighting for them.
You really got to have an advocate if you're looking for if you're trying to get the services and the things you need. If you don't have someone that's advocating for you and on your side, unless you have a very intense or advanced knowledge of how special education works, it's hard to really get everything that you need.
Mm-hmm. Um,
I would go ahead.
do it. Go
I,
ahead.
I thought you were gonna.
No, you can go ahead.
I was gonna say about about the advocacy thing. I guess really you have to be your own self advocate at a certain point. That for me about 10th grade, and
Yeah.
I didn't know what the heck I was doing until they stuck me in the IEP and said, "Hey, you're old enough now. Sign your own paperwork and make your own decisions." And you're still gonna have this aid, but you get to do more and have more freedom. And I'm like, wow, good. Do I get a cookie and a gold star? Question mark. Like, what the heck am I supposed to do? You hand me a bunch of bull that I don't understand, and you don't explain it to me. You just have me sign my life away, so to speak. Like,
Yeah.
what
Right.
am I signing? Are you taking out my kidney? Are you, sticking me on a bus to China? Or like, explain it better.
Yeah. My self advocacy stuff really didn't start until middle school, high school. And that was literally just in doctor's offices because mama would be in the room and they would start talking to her and not me
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
what.
about
That's
my health care.
exactly. I did a blog on this year or about a year ago when I was running an advocacy organization, my advocacy page, and it's just like we need to be our own advocates and not
Right.
have to depend and rely on our parents because it's it's a whole different ballpark and we could start a whole different conversation on that, but
Right.
I don't really want to get into that right now because that's just like ridiculous.
Okay, Laura Lott says both of my older kids are very patient and protective with my youngest son since he has a disability. Would you say a lot of it comes natural even with younger siblings because they see and grow to understand the true struggles he has with everyday life, especially school?
I'd say yes for sure. Just having the experience alone is just what uh, makes you more of an advocate and a better person in general as far as like helping out and wanting to see your siblings succeed.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Judy Johnson says, yes, you have to be educated in what is available to you. Parents have to be involved. My daughter, although only teaching third grade, has begun trying to help those parents because she loves her kids.
Exactly.
Laura Lott says IEP meetings are the worst. I couldn't imagine my child having to go through them by himself. I know at some point he will have to learn to advocate for himself. It makes me nervous.
So, what age can you actually advocate for yourself? Is it when you turn 18? Is that when you're able to sign your own paperwork, or is it?
For
I'm
me,
pretty sure
it was
it
18
Okay.
was
for me
18. Yeah.
because
I guess you're legal.
when I had my senior IEP meeting, the last one of the year, it was about a week after I turned 18, and when I sat in we did the usual bowl, and when they passed me the paperwork and like, here, now you can sign your own stuff. I'm like, okay, give it to me. And they were asking me my opinion on things and my decisions on things because
Mhm.
I was only like I said, midway through my senior. I would say, no, it was probably the year before because I graduated about a couple weeks after I turned 19, and one of the last IEP meetings we had, it was when that happened. And to me, that gave me a sense of accomplishment because I was like, yay, I get to do more things for myself, and I'm just going to leave here in a couple of weeks and never come back. Needless to say, I came back for an entire freaking year afterwards. For
Yeah.
extra, like, no more meetings. Shut up, phone.
Yeah. The first time that I ever had to like sign stuff, I was like I had my mom help me with the paperwork. So I was like,
Right.
I don't know what to do.
I don't know what I'm doing. Am I sending my life away? Am I giving a kidney away? Are you sending me to China? What?
Yeah, I also don't know if you did this, but and I sometimes still do this. Um, when a doctor would ask you a question, looking at your parent.
Yes. Heck yes. I literally to
Yeah.
this day, dad, and he's not like, he's like, uh, whatever. Your mother was better at this. And then I'm just in the back of my mind thinking, oh yeah, I don't have mom for this anymore. She's gone. So I'm
My
like,
my mom tells me that I have to answer the question now, and I'm like,
yeah, I have to do all that for myself. And I'm just like, either yes, no, maybe so. Give me more. Don't give me any.
I have gotten
I don't
better at
care.
it though.
Me too. Honestly, it's a learning process, and you get
Yeah.
better at it, and you have moments where you're just like brain fart, like
Yeah.
what the, what am I do?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
So, Sarah, let me ask you if you didn't have support from uh, your brothers, how do you think that would have affected you if you wouldn't have had our support when you were younger? If we wouldn't have been
I
there, basically.
feel like I would probably be a lot worse than I am. Um,
Okay.
like I have also learned a lot from y'all, just like having that support.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
mhm,
it kind of just like makes me feel normal
Oh.
exactly.
getting to have that support. I think I would be more aware of my disability constantly and knowing that I was different. Um, because I wouldn't have anybody to make me feel normal,
Yeah.
Right.
if that makes any sense.
So having a family
It's
unit,
Yeah,
mom, dad, maybe your brother, having that
right.
has helped make you feel more like nice. The word you're using is normal. I don't know if that's really something. Is that a? It seems like, it almost seems like it has a negative connotation, but I don't want it to. Like I'm trying to think of the right way to say it.
Right, right.
no, it doesn't.
Yeah,
Okay.
I get it. Coming from the perspective of being the only person in the family with a disability, you know, people learn at a young age where, hey, there's somebody in the family or in the group that's different, and we need to figure out a way to include them better. And that actually comes back on the inclusion topic. From a young age, my sister was 18 when I was born, and when like I said, probably the first year that I was born, she, you know, just being a teenager herself, she knew that, one, I was different. Two, I was probably not going to live. Three, that I was probably not going to be able to do the same things that she did or that she could do. And when I got to be, older, she knew right off the bat, hey, this kid's going to go somewhere one of these days and not have the help that he needs, and he's going to be able to do all these things on his own. And boom, here we are almost 27 years later. And she's sitting here wondering how the heck I'm still alive, coming from the fact that doctors told her when I was, or told us when I was 2 hours, or when I was born, I would live 2 hours.
Mhm.
How did I make it almost 27 years? Put it up to you. I don't know. Like, I'm still here. And, even Sarah, you can agree that we're both, quote, medical mysteries because doctors don't know how we're still alive, how long we're going to be alive for, and, all the what ifs, so to speak, of having spina bifida.
And that was something when you were younger, Sarah, that I was very concerned about because that was right around the time when the internet first kind of started. We
Mhm.
had dial up and stuff, and I just remember researching spina bifida and finding out that the life expectancy of someone with spina bifida was very short,
Right.
and that really got to me. Um,
Mhm.
and I don't, and here you are, you're a woman now. You've gone way past that expectancy that I remember
Mhm.
reading when I was young. Do I know if the number I read was right? Probably I don't know, but I remember that impacting me as a teenager and being worried about every time something did happen. I was like, oh God, please
Right.
don't let this be, don't let this be it. And that's why I get so, uh, that's why I worry when you do need to go into the hospital, but you've made it through every single thing, every step of the way. And, you've
Mm-hmm.
been extremely successful and you're just going to keep on going. Both you and John, you're just, like you said, medical. Would you say it was a medical mystery? That's,
Medical.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, and I mean, I'm
And
grateful for that.
exactly. And I'm going to try not to get choked up when I say um, this. I had my last shunt surgery back in 2007, and the the circumstances around it are still clear to me, even though it was a kind of a foggy experience. I remember having, the problems, and, I remember losing my voice and seizures and an ambulance trip. And even the doctors were looking at me saying, you're probably not going to live through this, John. And I remember looking at a doctor and saying, you don't know who I serve. You don't know what God I serve. You
Mhm.
don't know the God that I serve. And they said, that day they were telling me, you're probably going to be in here for about a week. And then when they did the surgery that afternoon or that evening, they came to me and was like, probably going to be in here till tomorrow. And exactly 24 hours after I had the brain surgery for the last time, I rolled out of that hospital and I said, I'm never coming back here for another surgery. My doctor even retired, moved to Michigan, got another job, and then retired again. She came out of retirement to do my surgery, went back into retirement, and now she's completely retired. Have not had a brain surgery. This October will be 14 years since my last brain surgery. So, do I have regrets that it's not, or that it's going to happen again? Yes, I feel like it's going to happen again one of these days. But
Mhm.
am I still able to knock on wood that it's probably not going to happen? Knock on wood, it won't happen again until I'm at least in my 30s.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. This week, 30. Look at us now. We're almost 27 in a way. Like, we're almost to that point where they say you're going to die. They said at first
Mhm.
2 hours. Then they said toddler. Then they said 15. Then they said 30. And I'm like, I'm approaching 30. You're trying to scare me? That ain't going to work. Expectations, my foot.
Yeah, a similar thing happened in 2013. And this was something I was going to mention
Right.
earlier when you were talking about giving mama a break from
Mhm.
like the hospitals or whatever. Um, when you were stayed with me in 2013 when I was in that hospital for the 36 days
Yeah.
or whatever it was. Yeah.
I remember this.
Um, but just the unknown of that, because I think because I was older
Hmm.
during that
Yeah.
one was more like, oh, I'm having like 7 surgeries in a row. Um, am I gonna make it out
Yeah.
of all these? But I think that's the one that got me because before that, I've been like a one and done kind of thing.
Yep.
Was that the
And
shunt
also,
surgery?
we didn't know why it was happening.
Mhm.
Didn't
Was
you
that the
tell you told
time
me?
when
Yeah,
Good.
was that the time when you lost, like when you weren't able to, you're no longer able to use your legs? Is that the same, or was that the one
yeah,
before?
yeah.
Okay.
That
See,
was that
that
same,
impacted.
like more.
I know I didn't show it, like, because I didn't want to. That's another thing as a brother that, and then now that it's almost been 10 years, I never really showed that kind of emotion because I didn't want to worry you at the time, and I didn't want to worry mom anymore. But that really impacted me because I knew that you had gone so long being able to walk, and I had watched you, you know, them tell you you can't walk, and then you were walking again, then you were walking, and then you were just getting around like everyone else, and all of a sudden you lost the use of your legs. You know, it's such
Mhm.
an older age that you were about to go to college, correct? I'm trying to make my timeline right
Yeah,
here. You were about to go to
yeah,
college, so this was going to be a big thing for you, and I kind of kept it to myself, but I was really scared for you because I
hmm
knew that this was going to be a struggle. Um,
yeah,
but once again, just like you have in the past, you've overcome that struggle. You've overcome it, and you're great with the wheelchair, uh, and you've made life work for you. You really have. I mean, you've been
hmm
able to take what you know, you've been able to adapt, and you know it's it's made you even a better person than before. I mean, even with
hmm
but I was seriously scared for you during that same time frame. I was just worried
yeah,
because I knew losing the use of your legs was going to be a huge struggle.
yeah.
I'm proud of that
I
for you, Ken.
I lost the use of my legs, and I was also transitioning to college
Right.
all at the same time.
That was a huge undertaking at that point, and I just
Jeez.
And
and I tried to be.
trying to
I was
use,
I was positive on the outside to you, but honestly, on the inside, I was like, if it would have been me, I don't know how I would have handled that. I think that
yeah, I feel like I didn't really show how I was handling it,
mhm,
like on the outside. I did cry when I got my first wheelchair. Um,
mhm.
but like having to transition from that, um, other than when I first got it, I don't think I really showed how much it did impact me
Hmm.
because I didn't want anyone to like feel bad for me or
I
so I
feel like
kind of kept it all inside.
as a
Huh?
family, we're like that though. As a family, we're kind of like that though. It's like 'cause I'm the
Yeah.
same way.
We just
I usually
keep
keep
stuff
things
inside.
inside and just try to deal with it
Mm-hmm.
myself, whereas I probably, should be more vocal about my needs and more, like
Right.
expressing my emotions.
Right.
It's just part of our. You could blame it on genetics. I don't know. Maybe I don't.
Let's see. Um, what about long term? Have you had conversations with your family that if your sibling needs help in older age, what that will look like or who will help? That's a question for you, cause
Um, I've talked with mom a couple of times about what would happen, and and honestly, it's whatever you want to happen, Sarah. Like, we'll figure it out. Um, you're if we need to, build you a house, or if we need to put you
Right.
find somewhere where you can be closer to us, we would figure it out for sure. And you're so
Right.
independent at this point that really, I don't think that is a conversation we have to discuss too in detail. But I mean, if you know, you're going to be cared for regardless. I don't by one of us, me, Brent,
Mm,
Dad, Mom.
Right.
Somebody's always going to be there for you. And if we're all gone,
exactly.
then we'll find somebody.
Yeah, I think, and this is just me talking out loud. Um, I think that if something were to happen to like Mama or someone around here, I would want to move back to Georgia
Hmm. Yeah.
just because literally everyone else is there.
Right.
And I think I would feel safer.
Hmm.
Right.
Like if something were to, like, if my shunt were to fail, or because I wouldn't be able to drive myself to the hospital.
Right.
And I'm, depending on how bad it is, I'm not sure I could call an ambulance
Hmm.
just because I know how it has affected me in the past. So I think being closer,
I think that would be great. I think that's definitely
not
something that.
necessarily like living
Right.
with you
Yeah,
or
because you need your
major,
independence. Right, you do,
right,
but you need to be close enough in touch with people.
And Sarah, you brought up a very good point. In having the opportunity or the willpower to call um emergency services or help for yourself. I had that opportunity, to make that decision when I was 23. I suffered a massive kidney infection, and I made the choice to call 911 on my own. And I felt, honestly, even in that horrible time, I felt grown up because I was like, oh, yeah, I did this for myself. I'm ready to do this. And it's just like, having that opportunity to make that decision on your own and not have somebody else do it for you, unbeknownst to your will, is like major adult
right,
101, right? Like you have
right,
that opportunity, even though somebody else makes the call for you, you have that willpower and that brain power to say, hey, something's wrong, call a friggin' ambulance or something.
right,
Anyway,
right. Let's see.
I'm smiling,
will this
Sarah,
work?
because
Questions.
your other
Huh?
brother is I'm smiling because your other brother is texting me while on here, telling me to do product placement like during the thing. So here's Dasani water.
Oh my gosh.
Mountain Dew?
My brothers, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know. I need to put my phone away. I need to make sure it's over there so I don't see his text, but it just cracks me up.
Would it would this work if I turned my phone sideways?
No,
Oh,
because you're sideways. Now
It
we can't
I
makes
have my
see.
the
auto.
There, well, kind of.
I mean, I have to charge my phone, so I'm trying
Yeah,
to
you're
figure out
fine.
if I can do it or, but we'll work with it for a few minutes.
Laura Lott says, I encourage all parents of children with disabilities to find an advocate. They are out there and are so willing to help. I am truly blessed with a wonderful advocate that helps me through the process of all IEP meetings and all other paperwork that I totally don't understand.
um, what was her name?
Laura Lott.
Lorelai. Lorelai,
Laura
if
Lott.
you would in the
You
chat,
can just call her
Laura
Laura.
Or a
Lot,
lot.
Laura Lot,
Yeah,
oh,
you can just
Laura,
call her
Laura,
Laura.
if you how did you find your advocate? What did you have to do to get an advocate? Just out of curiosity, if you put that in the chat.
Go through some more. So she answers. Um, Heather says, Sarah, you look so pretty. Thank you, Heather. Judy says, I remember visiting you in 2013 and how long you were there. Many prayers because it was scary. Knowing how strong you were, it was a wake up call. Oh, thanks, Judy. I've kind of blocked some of that from my memory. I mean, I remember some of it, but
Right.
some of it I was just like,
Hold
like, oh,
on.
okay.
Oh, what?
The light went off.
Oh, wonderful.
Our lights
Gotta
are on
love light.
sensors, so
Oh, I hate that.
there we go. So I'm still for too long. They just go off.
Heather
So let me
says,
ask you this
no,
too.
he.
Let me ask you
Go
this.
ahead.
When you've had the surgeries, one thing that's always bothered me is your brother and anything, and with dad, mom, and everybody else is just the amount of pain you probably have to experience. So, since both of you have had shunt surgeries, like how would you
Hmm.
rate the pain of those surgeries? So, anybody else maybe listening can understand like what it's like.
The actual surgeries.
Oh, the aftermath, like when you come out of the
That
surgery, what does?
I would say it would depend on the surgery, honestly. Like
Yeah.
it would
Okay.
be the same like type of shunt surgery or whatever.
Right.
But
How
for
about when your
some
shunt's
reason,
malfunctioning?
mm-hmm.
Like, what does that feel like? How would you describe that?
um, for me, it feels like a hammer is being slammed into my head
Oh, wow.
a million times. Um, and it just doesn't stop.
Okay.
Right. For me, it's like the constant, like from skull to neck. It's like it's like a vice. Your head is being pressed into a from all angles, and you get the ringing in your ears, and then at some point you're just like you can't hear anymore, and then your eyes feel like they're gonna bug out of your freaking head. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember the last time that I had the shunt problem. I remember sitting in a computer lab in middle school, and I couldn't even because we were on a computer, and I couldn't even look at the computer because my neck was hurting so dang bad. And finally, my younger brother at this point had to call my caregiver. By the time my caregiver gets to the hospital, to the school, I had lost the ability to talk. At this point, I could not make a word. I was lapsing in and out of seizure and consciousness. She thought she could get me to the hospital 45 minutes away from my school, and she couldn't, so she drove right to our local fire department, which is 5 minutes from where I live, and had an ambulance on standby, and they were talking about life flighting me to the local hospital, and they did it by ground anyway because it was just whatever, they were there. So it was like the
Mm-hmm.
unknown of, hey, you're gonna do this, and having three more seizures on the way to the hospital, two more in the ER, and that was it. 7 seizures in one day is just like, hey, you're gonna have massive brain damage. I have black spots in my brain anyway. It ain't nothing you haven't told me before.
Yeah.
And to this day, that is one of the memories I have that I wrote about in my first book. So, if that tells you anything.
Sarah, after the surgery, like when you're recovering, that like I've always usually, if you are going through it, usually you're taken to the hospital for you get to the hospital before I do. So I only really see you after the recovery part, and I always know you're kind of in pain there. Is that pain comparable to what what you were going through prior to
It's
that, or is there some
actually
release?
it's actually a lot better
Okay.
because they've gotten rid of the pressure buildup, the
Hmm.
fluid buildup that is
Yeah.
going on. So I no longer have that fluid buildup just sitting there,
No.
not having anywhere to go. So, I mean, there's still some pain, but it's nowhere near where it was
Yeah.
like
Mainly
before
like the incision
surgery.
where they
Yeah,
do the
it's more
surgery.
incisional stuff.
Yeah, the
It's
incision hurts. It's sort of, mm,
I could tell a story about that, and it's like the most horrible thing in the world. They had when they opened me up a few or many years ago, they had to open me up at the head, the chest, and the stomach. And when they closed the chest wound because they used the staples, they punctured the new tube. So I had CSF leaking out of my chest,
wow.
and I didn't know what CSF was at the point. I didn't know what cerebrospinal fluid was. I thought it was just
Hmm.
because it was on my shirt. I thought it was water. So I'm like, okay.
Right.
But I get back and I'm leaking out of my chest, and I'm like, oh hell, this is not good. Go to the hospital. They super glue the stupid thing shut. 2 days later, I'm in hospital again, having the dang thing rerouted. I'm like, you're the ones who screwed up. You're the ones who stapled the tube. So you're the ones who have to fix it now. And I went off on people. I literally went
Yeah.
off. My parents went off on people. It was like, you are negligent enough to staple the new tube. Uh, how many brain cells do you have?
Right.
Like, I mean, not to say anything bad, but I had a neurosurgeon who was quite big and had to sit down to do an operation on me. And it's just like, hello, don't give me this. Like, hello? I don't know.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I was going to say
Dang.
something that pertained to that, but I don't remember what it was.
Brain issue.
It'll come back to me.
It'll come after this meeting, I bet you. You can just text me about it.
Heather said, he needs to do Scentsy product placement.
She sells. Okay.
Sensi Pro.
That's
Oh, God.
Matt's
Yeah.
wife. She sells Scentsy.
Ah. Oh, okay. Cool. Cool, cool.
Uh, Mama said that she is Laura's advocate.
Okay.
Laura
Uh,
said, "Your mom is my advocate. I met her at my old job."
I just always wondered, like, if there's how parents, if they really do need an advocate, where they can find one. I'm sure there's like there are advocates within the school system, but you have to specifically ask for them. They're not really
right.
advertised. If that makes sense. So it's kind of it's something they already have to know about to begin with. I was just curious how they go about that.
Right. Um, Alabama Care said, "Great broadcast, Sarah and John, and thank you, Matt, for being their guest. Enjoying hearing and learning from you all."
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
This was a really good broadcast. I think that is all the questions.
All right.
Unless y'all have anything else
I'm
No,
y'all would
good.
not that
like
I.
I
to,
enjoyed it.
you
Matt, that was awesome,
All right.
buddy. Glad to know
It was
Sarah's
nice.
brother.
Yep. It was nice meeting you, John.
hopefully at hopefully at one point you'll get to meet my other brother.
There you go. Maybe
Oh,
he'll
really?
come on here.
Yeah,
That'd be an
I have two.
I one
I
point
was
about.
going to do one with both of them,
Uh
but
huh.
my other brother's work schedule is really crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. I had a cancellation myself of tonight, so I can do things. But yeah, honestly, Matt, it's very nice to meet you, and it's good to know that there's people out there like you that care so much about, people in Sarah and mine's condition, and knowing that we have a family advocate, so to speak, that understands what we go through, what we're going to go through, and even knowing the what ifs, having the what ifs is what really matters. Having a family unit as an advocate. So I honestly I applaud you, brother, for what you've allowed Sarah to do and what you in turn have learned from Sarah, even though you being 10 years older than her. It's just like, hey, you're there, you're you're learning as you go along, and so
Well,
Hmm.
thank you, and I'll talk to you later, Sarah. All right.